Thank you for tuning in to Beyond Evidence. This is Robin Martinelli of Martinelli Investigations. We always want to thank Tom Sheldon of Northeast Georgia Business RadioX. So in our studio today, we have Miss Norma Jean. Norma Jean works for me, but Norma Jean is also a very, very close friend of the family. Norma Jean, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
I guess you're kind of under the weather, but
just a little bit. It's okay.
I drug you in here.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk about strange relations. I feel like some of Martinelli Investigation and Robin Martinelli's success has been because the experience of law enforcement that I have and my family has that brings to the table of some of our cases. But I would like to ask you, Norma Jean, because you're kind of new, but you're kind of old in the business. So do you see anything that changes, or are you surprised about things when we do involve the police and we talk to them about our cases?
I think a lot of the police are more apt to help us because of your background.
Really?
And yeah, absolutely. When they know you have a daughter, two daughters in law enforcement, your husband's in law enforcement, they know you know what you're talking about, and you're just not some private investigator off the street.
Really?
Absolutely, we are treated differently.
Why do you think that is, in your opinion?
A lot of it is they know you have the knowledge. You're not coming in there not knowing what you're talking about.
Right.
A lot of people think they know the law. You know the law because of your background and your family's background.
Right.
You got to remember that. So people are going to be more apt to help you.
Right. And I feel like I feel very proud, extremely proud that private investigators and the industry has come up to a level that is different than it was 20 years ago. 20, 25 years ago, you would never imagine to pick up the phone and call a PI to find a lost relative. It just didn't cross your mind. So now we're getting calls that people are like, hey, Gwinnett County Police Department told me to hire a private investigator to find my long-lost uncle, which they don't say my name. Of course, I guess, my husband's retired from Gwinnett County Police Department. They don't say my name, but I'm proud that it's an option, especially knowing if somebody's lost.
Right.
And been lost for a while.
Right. And I think a lot of that, too, stems from them not having the time that they had.
Especially Gwinnett.
Gwinnett does not have the time to focus on it like we do.
Right.
So I think that's a lot of why they do that. They know they can't put the time into it that we can.
Right. And I think that the subject person, whoever hires us, knows that we cost money. But I appreciate the fact that law enforcement now recognizes there could be another option to go out there with accidents and other cases, and sometimes criminal.
Right.
But we just recently had a case that is dealing with South Georgia. I won't say the jurisdiction because it's still a big case. It was in South Georgia and also in Alabama. The person that I was to find, the female, we think that she's passed away.
Right.
And both agencies, I was shocked, but you know as well as I do, before we get involved in any type of criminal case, we have to ask permission of the agencies. Like we have to get on the phone, and before we work for the family or work for anybody, we have to say, what part of this investigation are you? So we don't overstep, or we don't do anything you do not want us to do.
Right.
So you've seen me make those phone calls.
Right.
To the actual officer themselves. And if I never reach the officer, all that I do is like the backgrounds, the open records requests, things that are public. But to my shock is with Emmy's case, the person that they think did things to her daughter is actually a close person to her. And as the police were going to interview him, he lawyered up. And so now nobody can talk to him. He can't get a statement. Both agencies can't get a statement about where this individual could be.
Right.
But they called me and said, can you go get a statement? And we went. He's not there, but we went. I felt privileged that, like, we're the only one that could maybe solve or get to the bottom of it because he's lawyered up. And that means that the officers can't talk to him anymore about that situation.
But we can.
We can. And I would have, and I'm still going to. It's just he's not in our jurisdiction.
Right.
How do you think we do when we go on TV? How does that help when we put the TV in the mix of it?
Oh, that's a big help. It reaches so many more people. It's
really
not
does.
just, it does. It reaches that whole area. Mm-hmm. It's not just word of mouth, then it becomes public.
It does. And then our state's complicated because we have 159 counties in the state of Georgia, which is the second. Texas has the most counties, so Georgia has the second most counties. We have about 537 cities, and then we have little towns, and we also, Arcadia, just little towns, and unincorporated. But you also have the Georgia State Patrol. You also have the FBI and the GBI. So there's different jurisdictions that we need to understand to communicate with as we're going through our cases. And that's a lot. Literally, like, get along with or sit down and ask them about the situation. That is
I did
a
not
lot.
know Georgia had that until you just told me.
Yes, 159 counties. And then also what's confusing is you have Monroe City and Monroe County. And so you have different counties that are cities and cities that are county. You have Forsyth City and Forsyth County. So a lot of times when they call us, it's like, okay, are you talking about a city? Are you talking about a county?
About the county.
Right. And then, I don't live in the city of Auburn. I live in the unincorporated. I live in Barrow County. So that's very confusing for other people that are coming to our city for jurisdictions.
Right.
Of different stuff. And then probably 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you can help me out with this, you could get to A to B in less than 15, 20, 30 minutes. But now when you drive from Beaufort to Atlanta, some days it could take you 2 hours. Some days if there's an accident, it could take 4.
Oh, yeah, you got to go A to Z to get back to B. I mean, there are some mornings it's a 30-minute drive when we come into the office. Mm-hmm. There's mornings it's 30 minutes. Yesterday, it was an extra 20 minutes.
Wow. Just to get from your Lawrenceville.
Yes.
All the way there.
Yes.
And how important is it to get your windows tinted and to have a different car and to be incognito when we're doing our cases?
Very important. I didn't realize it, though, until you put it in perspective. Okay. You don't want people seeing inside of your vehicle, because they're going to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier you can sit in your car with your camera and know they don't see what you're doing.
Because they're illegally tinted.
Exactly.
It's illegal tint, but in the state of Georgia, private investigators, we're actually in a two-party bill, the law, so private investigators certified and people that have a prescription for their doctor because of their eyesight are able to have the 5% on the car, and even the front windshield on our car is extremely dark.
Right.
And so how is it being a private investigator as a woman?
I know this may sound crazy, but think about our clients that come in. What do most of them say? I want a woman.
Even the men say that too.
Even the men. It's very, I'm not going to say, I know they have a reason for it, but most, like the guy that came in the other day, he said, I specifically want a woman. It's just important to me to have a woman.
And why do you think that's important? I think it's important because I think women tune in differently.
We do. It is our thinking is completely different. And you know that. From my thinking and our male investigators, my thinking is completely different than theirs.
Right.
It's not a bad thing, but we think differently.
Right. So getting back to relationships, how important do you think it is to have a relationship with our local police department, supporting them in things too, like local activities? I remember back when Gwinnett County had the dog program. I don't know if they still have it. Like in the community, having relationships and marketing and stuff. How do you think that's important to the business?
It is very important when they know us and know the kind of work that we do for something, who are they going to recommend?
Right.
Who they have relationships with. And it's not just about that either, but it is important to have a good working relationship with them.
Right, because I know you don't go to Walmart and find a private investigator.
No.
It's usually word of mouth.
Right.
But knowing you've been with us close to a year now, how hard is it to be a private? Because people think that
it's easy. It's not.
People think that we just, oh my gosh, I think they think that private investigators just solve a problem and sit in front of a house. They have no idea that, like, we have to buy these little things that you pee into and stuff because we can't move, and we just got different. It's a lot more tedious. So talk about the toughness, the strain, the mental.
It is. As far as, like you said, you can't just pull over and grab lunch. You can't just pull over at the Chevron and go to the bathroom. You can't just go in the QT and say, I think I want a Coke right now. It does not work that way. Mm-hmm. Because you're taking a risk. If you stop, you could lose that person.
True.
Or miss what you're following them for. You let them get too far ahead of you and say it's a cheating spouse case. Mm-hmm. You're going to miss what you're going for if you stop. You can't lag.
Like seconds.
Exactly.
But what are some of the rewards that you see from some of our work? You personally have had some rewards of our work as teamwork coming together. What has it meant to you, some of our cases, of how rewarding it is?
It really means a lot when somebody calls you after the case is over and says, you do not know how much I appreciate you and how hard you worked on my case.
Yeah. Especially, I wouldn't say men, but sometimes you don't expect that from.
No, you don't.
Or the attorney.
I mean, we had that client that gave us the one first name of somebody. Mm-hmm. Remember that one?
I do.
And I found her. He was just like, I don't know that anybody else could have done this other than you. And I said, well, yes, they could have. Mm-hmm. I said, but I just happened to be the one put on it.
Right.
He says, I know, but you can just go in and talk to anybody.
Right.
And I got every bit of the information he needed.
He was so grateful.
He was, and he is, what an awesome man he was. I enjoyed working for him.
Yeah, I remember that. So the strange relationships can be also with Georgia State Patrol. So let's go over all of them. You have counties, you have the sheriffs do the county, then you have the police department, which is within the counties. You have Georgia State Patrol, you have the FBI, and you have the GBI. So when you deal with Georgia State Patrol, it's usually an accident that has happened on the roadway or some severe situation that's happened on the roadways. I've maybe encountered cases with the Georgia State Patrol, maybe 100 cases out of thousands and thousands of cases. But when you go to like Rockdale County, they don't have Rockdale County Police Department. They just have Rockdale County Sheriff's Office. But inside Rockdale County, you have the city of Conyers, and you have other cities, like in Walton County. Walton County has sheriff's deputies, but you also have Social Circle. You have little different cities inside of Walton County. Now, those are the counties. What is interesting and confusing is you have your metro cities, okay? Metro cities meaning Gwinnett, Cobb, Fulton, Clayton, Henry, DeKalb, and within most of those metro cities, you have county police officers. So let's take Gwinnett. Gwinnett, you have Gwinnett County Police Department, which is where my husband retired from. And then you have Gwinnett Sheriff's Office. Gwinnett, in the state of Georgia, Gwinnett Sheriff's Office does the jail and stuff with the jail and the warrants and the stuff at the courthouse, whereas the police department is who you deal with on the road and different cases. So, do we do a lot of open records requests?
Yes.
To enlighten everybody on open records requests, people have no idea that when you dial 911 or anybody in your house dials 911 or your property, that we're able to go back very long ways, not to get the audio and video, but to get the police report.
Right.
And so we actually, with custody cases, can ask for open records request through that department or that city. But the one thing that we like to do, and you've done a lot, is we'll take somebody's background, extensive background, and we'll look at every single address they've ever lived at for 25, 30 years, call that jurisdiction, get their open records request clerk and their email, and ask for any incidents, police reports, accidents, CAD sheets, anything that has happened with that person or that property or those names within that request.
And people would be amazed at the information we get from that.
Which is a lot.
A lot.
It's a whole lot. And so the other interesting thing is when I don't like to make appointments with officers because they usually don't want to see me, especially if it's criminal. But when I go sit with the officers, I'm sure you've seen some of our staff talk about our notebooks.
Yes.
And how you made 3 or 4 notebooks before you came to the studio today. Why do you think our notebooks and our evidence that we gather in the beginning is so important to the integrity of the investigation?
Because it gives them all of the work that we've done on it. Mm-hmm. Everything that we've done on that case is in that notebook.
Right.
You know, and we do pick at you about the notebooks.
Why? Because I'm old school?
But we do understand, too, it's easy to flip. Okay, I need Jane Doe's IDI. You flip to the page. It's right there.
Right.
You know, and we do joke with you about the thumb drives, but I do see both sides. I'm going to tell you that. But they are very good, and clients like them.
Because they have a tangible product.
It is in their hand. It's not anything that has to be plugged in.
The FBI, here's a little situation with the FBI. So if you want to go to the FBI about a federal case, which is totally different, us as a layperson or a civilian can't do that unless special circumstances. It is the police agency has to request to go to the FBI. I'll give you an example. There was a case, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago where a nail tech lady had given this guy in a foreign country over $160,000. And I guess the love of her life. Anyway, so she gave that person that much money. Well, that's a large amount of money to give somebody that you get nothing in return. So they turned the case over to the FBI. So I actually had FBI agents come to my office and sit down and talk to me about the case because the amount was so large. But they have to get a request. And then the GBI is different because that's Georgia Bureau of Investigations, and they usually handle cases when the county brings them in, meaning it's a small town or small county, and they don't have the resources, so they bring in the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. So you can also have a case there too. So it really depends on the municipality of the relationship, and it also depends on what we can and can't do. But if I pride myself of having relationships with these counties and some of these chiefs and police officers, and in doing that, I think that helps our client.
Oh, absolutely. Because I bet of the 159 counties, you probably know somebody in 158 of those.
You think I know everybody?
Well, you do. I mean, you've been doing this long enough that you've worked a lot of those counties. I bet if you sat down, you would be amazed at the counties that you've probably had cases in.
Yes, and how different the courthouses are. Oh my goodness, and how spread out they are. And like Walton County doesn't even have a state court. They just have a superior court and a magistrate court. Oh, and let's not forget the district attorney's office has investigators. So different state magistrate, state, superior, they have their investigators too, getting prepared for the cases. So relationships matter because because it's very emotional for our cases.
Right.
Everything that they have is emotional, and it's very important to them at the moment. And sometimes we can't make them happy, especially when the person's not having an affair. How difficult are those cases when the person's absolutely doing what they're supposed to do?
Those are hard. And not because in the client's eyes, they are 100% sure. They are 100% sure that that's what they're doing. And it's not always the case.
Well, we had a case the other week where the guy was thinking about going through a divorce, and he thinks his wife's having an affair. but he also has a 10-year-old child. So by filming her doing nothing with the child or dropping the child off to grandma or grandpa, you almost can prove that dad is spending more time with the child, even if she's not having an affair.
Right.
She just doesn't want to be a wife or a mom.
Right.
So a lot of times it's not all for nothing. But then sometimes we have to sit the client down and say, look, the person's doing exactly what you said that they were doing. So maybe we need to look to home to see what's going on.
Right.
And a lot of those cases get pretty difficult. But how important is it also to know, not in depthness, but to know your judge?
That's very important. You taught me that.
Right. Because what one judge, now I don't know all the judges' backgrounds, okay? I don't do backgrounds on judges, but I know courtrooms. And if you're going to go into, you're not going to do the same thing in Judge Osborne's courtroom that you're going to do in Judge Smith's courtroom in different jurisdictions. So to know that before you get involved in the case, experience-wise, really helps the client.
Right.
Because they don't pull their judges. A judge gets pulled by random of who they're going to have.
That's right.
And they don't know what's going on. But I think out of all our cases, the custody cases get to be the most frustrating for the client.
They do. I would definitely say the custody cases.
And then lastly, how many scamming cases have we had?
What is going on?
I think we got up to 3.2 million with one case.
Robin, we are getting more and more calls about people getting scammed.
Like literally getting scammed.
Yes.
Of a lot of money.
A lot.
And my motto to that is if you can't meet the person in person to do the transaction,
don't do it.
Don't wire transfer, because not only do they get ripped off then, they go in a pool to be ripped off again, or their neighbors or their family.
And you know the sad part to me?
Because they're victims.
And who do they prey on though? It's the elderly people.
They do.
It infuriates me.
Yeah. Especially with our one
because
yesterday.
they don't know any better, Robin.
True.
They don't know or have the knowledge that we do. Mm-hmm. It's terrible.
And I don't know why Georgia is a target, but we've been a target for a minute. And it's tough to do a retainer with them because they're already out $160,000, $200,000, $500,000 on what they don't know. And they think these people are real.
Right.
And like we learned yesterday that one of the PIs looked up how you can change your numbers through the cloud to 3 or 4 different numbers.
And I didn't know that.
And a bank, what is that called? It's not iCloud. We looked it up yesterday, and it's like a trunk of like going up.
I just did the notebook, and I can't remember.
It's okay, but it's like you could just grab all these numbers and these people and think there's a big group with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the big one.
Yes.
And these people are well educated. Remember the 60 or 70-year-old male, $350,000?
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and we have to send them a cease and desist. And then they started attacking us, which,
But what's sad is these
phone.
people actually believe it, though, Robin.
They do.
They threaten their families. They threaten they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And these people believe them.
Yes.
They don't know that they're over and probably in another country.
Yes, if that.
And they can't get to them, but they don't know any better.
Right. So I want to also express ending how proud I am of you. Just getting in there, and you've got to be the one that's the nitty gritty. You are the one that's like, yeah, I'll go sit over there for about 25 hours. And we always know it's you. And how strong of a relationship do you have with our family?
Very.
Yes.
Yes.
So, we treat you like family too, but you've really just gotten in there with the trenches. We put you at the front line. And
yes.
You do it, and you do it. You even take the initiative, and I really, really appreciate that too. So it's been a minute since we have somebody that loves the passion, go out there and do it, cares about the end result, also cares about the company and who they work for, and cares about my husband.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though my husband can whip your bottom in tennis. But
we're not going to.
Just
No, but I mean, you have a precious family. I love your family. You know.
So is there any lasting words about relationships that we have or anything that...
No, I just think it's very important that you build good, solid, strong relationships with these people.
And it helps with the clients.
It absolutely does. Because once you finish that case, and if you need them again, they're going to, hey, we're here for you.
They remember.
They remember.
They always remember you too.
Exactly.
I hope y'all tune in next time to Beyond Evidence. And everybody have a wonderful, peachy day. Please contact us by our website, martinelliinvestigations.com. Martinelli ends in an I. Investigation starts with an I, so that's 2 I's with an S on the end. Our email is MII, and then Georgia spelled out, GeorgiaPI @gmail.com. And please call us anytime at 770-337-3999, 770-337-3999 for a free consultation. Thanks so much and have a great peachy day.